my name is Palma Accardi, and you are watching Tidal Flooding Talk. We are brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition and filmed live here every Sunday at the Irish Pub in Atlantic City.
And about 7 months ago or so, we were live here at the Irish Pub with this gentleman seated beside me. I'm meteorologist Dan Skeldon with the guy who I always introduce as the South Jersey meteorologist, or my meteorological mentor, or the man, Jim Eberwine, who needs no introduction.
Dan, thank you very much.
Jim, thanks so much for kind of coming full circle. You're our first repeat guest. I couldn't think of a better person for our first guest and for our first repeat guest. So
well, I appreciate that. Especially on Veterans Day. But, yeah, it's great.
And thanks, of course, to all the veterans,
Absolutely.
Men and women out there who have served, who are serving. Pretty nice day for ceremonies and observances today.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Jim, just I guess I think you need no introduction, but just tell us a little bit about yourself. And now I know you're a retired meteorologist, but we've been talking off camera. You're busier now than you were when you were actually employed.
Working. Yeah.
Right. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Real quick. Grew up in Philadelphia. Went in the Marine Corps. That's where I got my interest in weather, and then I started working for the National Weather Service. November 22nd in 1972, so that's coming up, my anniversary.
So how many years? Oh, wow, okay.
My anniversary.
Yeah.
Well, that is old, isn't it? So then, since I retired 2010 from the Mount Holly office.
You retired, all right.
I retired, yeah, I like that. I like the hooks there. I retired 2010, but since then I've been teaching a meteorology course at ACCC. And then I taught 2 years at ACIT, which I'll do again in January, and then possibly another school down in Cape May. And the classes are aviation weather, and my students are people who are interested in the aviation community. They want to be fixed-wing pilots, helicopter pilots, air traffic controllers, and the big thing for all the youngsters watching, drones.
That is up and coming, right?
Drones are literally taking off.
Yeah.
I have a couple of people in my class, 22 years old, and have their own business. So you can get your license at ACCC, throw an advertisement there for ACC. But it's a great career if you get into it. The aviation, you're actually in the mecca of aviation here in South Jersey with the FAA Tech Center.
Right. And then I know Cape May County is really trying to lead the way in drone development. And then,
absolutely.
And then, we have the aviation research
They hope
part.
to. I mean, I saw an article, they want to be the Silicon Valley for drones. And that's perfect. That's perfect. So in a nutshell, that's what I've been doing, staying busy, and it's always good to see you. It's always good to see you.
It's a pleasure having you here on Tidal Flooding Talk. If you have a question for Jim, you can always just chime in. We'll try to get to the questions a little sooner. We've been saying that since 7 months, so we don't get it till the end. But we'll try to do that a little sooner. And of course, if you just want to listen into the conversation before the big Eagles game tonight, we'll be done long before that. So again, thanks for being here, guys, and fire away with your questions.
Now, about this course at ACCC, with so many different professions taking the course, what are you really focusing on? And is it a requirement for all of those students?
It is if you're pursuing an aviation associate's degree. What I do is I present aviation weather, kind of as a safety. In other words, I want to teach them how to stay out of trouble.
Okay.
Teach pilots how to stay out of trouble. Air traffic controllers are very knowledgeable of weather today with all the technology, so they too help pilots if they're flying along and they want to talk to them. The drones have a different kind of criteria for weather. It's not as expanded as manned aircraft. They have certain limitations and things like that. And they're smaller, so they're subject to wind problems and rain problems, stuff like that. So we teach them where to look up the latest information, how to get it, and most importantly, in the aviation community, you want to stay safe. Some of the students are getting their pilot's license, and they have to fly, say, in the afternoon. I'm trying to tell them where to go for the best resources to find out what the weather is, so if they get up there, they won't get into a problem.
How do you think drones can change the way we respond to disasters along the shore? After a major event like Sandy, that was a little before the up and coming of drones. But how do you think that can improve response and improve our understanding of just how bad things are, and improve the recovery after a big storm, whether it be a nor'easter or a hurricane?
That's a great question. You did mention Cape May County.
Yes.
There's a gentleman by the name of David Yoel, American Aerospace from Pennsylvania, and he's kind of the contact for drone industry in Cape May. He works with the local people down there, and he's done fantastic work. Flying after a hurricane, he went down into the Keys, and he was able to fly over the damage area before anybody was able to get in there. And people called me up and said, Jim, I live in this key or this key or this key or this key. Those are little islands. How do you think my house fared? Well, I got in touch with Mr. Yole. They had already done a strip of the coast, and if you didn't see damage, you'd say, hey, I think you did pretty good. So in that respect, it's good. The other one is, the number one problem in a disaster, post-disaster, is cell phone service is gone. And that's critical today. The towers are out. So what they've done, his company's also done, is work with the emergency managers in Cape May County, and Verizon, I believe, was the company, and they took a transmitter. Now, I'm not technically real sharp with this, but they took one and they put it on a drone, and it had it fly overhead, and they were able to talk using this hookup with the drone. So it's got a lot of uses. They use them for inspecting power lines. Rutgers University has a drone that goes underwater. Okay. So it's fascinating, and the thing about it can be used for just about anything. The limitations are 400 feet, line of sight, things like that. You can't fly it over anybody. But they're going to be changing some of those regulations, but it's an up-and-coming thing. A lot of people I know initially were concerned about privacy. I don't want a drone flying and looking through my window and stuff like that, but for every one of those people that may want to do that, there's a person that's going to try to stop that from happening.
So I know you did speak a little bit about this, but can you tell us more about when you realized you wanted to pursue a career in weather?
Well, you know, it's
I know you have a good story for
it's
this.
somewhat embarrassing in a way. I grew up in Philadelphia. I'd walk the streets of Philadelphia, and if it was raining in Philly, this is how smart I was, I thought it was raining all over the world. And if it was sunny, I
think people in Philly still think that.
They still think that.
It's always sunny.
Oh, here we go. Oh, my friends are going. Here's a question right now from one of my boys. Don't do it. Or when it was sunny everywhere. But what happened was, I graduated from Father Judge High School in Northeast Philly. I went in the Marine Corps 9 days afterwards. You take a battery of tests when you go in, and it was in 1967. So everybody was going to Vietnam, because you got these orders, Westpac, which meant West Pacific, and I get the order to Lakehurst, and I'm thinking, Lakehurst? That's nowhere near the Western Pacific. That's right up the road here, and that's where I went to school to be a weather guide, and that was my MOS in the Marine Corps, and I was stationed with the 3rd Marine Air Wing, and it was a great career. I loved being in the Marine Corps. I went up to Father Judge yesterday, if I could throw this in real quick.
Sure.
The high school I graduated from, Father Judge, had more Vietnam fatalities of any other Catholic or private school in the country. Also with Cardinal Accardi, they had 27 also, but they have since closed. But ironically, the #1 school in the country that has had more Vietnam fatalities, or casualties, I mean, was Edison High School in Philadelphia, and they're known as the Edison 64. So I went up to Philadelphia yesterday, and we saw a movie about the 27, some of them classmates that I had at Father Judge.
So, how do you think, as a lifelong, South Jersey meteorologist, how do you think, I guess, preparation and understanding of our main focus, tidal flooding and nor'easters, has changed along the shore over the years? Do we understand it more now? Are we more prepared for it now? Are we less? How do you think it's changed since the '62 storm, or since Gloria? And I know it's you could probably spend an hour on that answer, but
see, we always, in our business in the weather service, I would always complain we didn't have enough file footage, which was good. But file footage just means that you had disaster after disaster, and then when something came along, you could say, let's get that storm and show the people what happened.
And we didn't have that for a while.
No, we didn't have that for a long time. But today, with 24-hour news coverage, we got all sorts of file footage that we're showing people, not only from Kansas and San Diego and Texas, but from New Jersey. And yet, I don't think that people have really grasped the seriousness of these storms, because if it doesn't affect me, as we were talking, if it doesn't affect me, I'm okay. And so we're seeing more happening, and we're seeing it closer to home, but I don't think we're really there yet. The National Weather Service they want to make the U.S. what they call a weather-ready nation. Right. They're doing a lot of good things in that direction, and you certainly over the years have done a lot through your TV and media. But I don't think the people are really taking it seriously yet, because we're such an instant gratification society. We see something and we move on. And I got 3 brothers in California, and when things happen back here on the east, you don't hear a buzz from them. Because it's not happening. Now, you were mentioning the fires earlier out in California. I'm interested in those fires because I lived out there for 7 years, and every spring, you'd have flood. First off would be the Santa Ana winds, which get up to 60, dries everything out. Then you get the rains, because there's no vegetation, and then you get the mudslide. Yep. And it's like baseball, it happens every spring. Right. And yet the people are still dying out there, they're still getting caught in it. I think you say to yourself, you don't want to say people are stupid. Right. You certainly don't want to say that.
Yeah, right.
But for some reason, we have all this information available to us. It's just not seeping through to the people who are in the most danger.
And it's something we talk about every week, I think, here. With nor'easters, some are a little stronger than forecast, some go out to sea. But, in my mind, it's, you shouldn't have anyone driving through floodwaters. No. You shouldn't have anyone leaving their car in a flood area days before a nor'easter when it's well forecast, and you shouldn't have anyone staying on an island when there's a mandatory evacuation. But of course, every single time any of those things happen, we have people doing all of them.
Well, we are sometimes crazy. If I want a new car, I'm waiting for the Weather Service to put out a flood warning, right? So I can park my car down by me.
Oh boy, don't give people ideas.
I'm not kidding. Don't try this at home, whatever you do. But that's kind of. And here's the other thing. We, the National Weather Service, every day, and even in Mount Holly here, we put out fire weather forecasts. Fire weather forecasts. Now, you have to ask yourself, are we sometimes causing fires? Because we put out a red flag warning. We tell people, don't go out, throw cigarettes, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Some people, and a lot of those fires are arson. So it's a crazy kind of setup that we have. We want to warn people, but by the same token, we don't want to. And you hear people say, "Well, I don't want to give out too much information." It's still an open case and thing like that. But sometimes maybe we give out too much information. People always ask me. They said, "Why do you always hype things? Why do you the National Weather Service?" And I said, "Do you know what hype stands for?" And they said, "What?" And I said, "Help you prepare early."
Wow, I like that.
And they say, "Yeah, that's a good different way
of
looking at it."
that's a good answer.
But
I never heard that. All our interviews, I never heard that either.
That's hype, see?
Yep.
Well, I think that, I know even our show, we're always talking about the preparations of a storm, but how do you think our area handles the response after the fact of a storm, such as Superstorm Sandy?
We are blessed in this part of Jersey with the emergency response team that we have, starting in Cape May, Marty Peruzzi, then Cumberland County, Joe Mansky and the group over there. Vince Jones, our own Atlantic County.
The Absecon emergency manager is amazing. He's incredible.
The best in the country, yeah. But you go up and down the coast, and you've got seasoned first responders. You got Dennis McNulty. He works over in Gloucester County. These are all people who are storm tested, and they've been through it. But again, Dan mentioned evacuations. Evacuations is a very tough thing, but we're finding out that the decision to evacuate may be a little bit more difficult than the evacuation itself, because with Sandy and Irene, we compared that. Actually, there was a study that came out of Rutgers University. They compared Sandy and Irene's evacuations with what we do on a normal Sunday evacuation. We evacuate every Sunday in the summer. You didn't know that. People go home from the shore. That's an evacuation. So what happens is they compared that to what happened in Sandy Irene, and they found it didn't differ that much. We had the same choke points. We had the same places where we thought we'd have accidents. We'd have the same backups that we thought. So we're getting better at evacuations, and Gloria was the first evacuation in '85. That was voluntary. It's supposed to be a Category 3 making landfall in Atlantic City, which would have been devastating. It hit the Outer Banks and then took off out to sea, 30 miles off our coast. But Irene was an evacuation, everything east of Route 9. And since a lot didn't happen when we gave the evacuation for Sandy, which was different, some people didn't go, well, nothing happened in Irene. But
yeah, how do you change that mentality? That's a common theme on our show as well.
Yeah.
We use Irene and Sandy. Irene was supposed to be bad. Everyone left, or a lot of people left.
Yep.
It wasn't.
Right.
Sandy was supposed to be worse,
right.
But because Irene wasn't bad, less people evacuated. How do you change that? Every storm is different, and what happened last time isn't a reflection of what's going to happen this time, because I haven't found the answer to that question yet.
Well, what I tried to do with them is, okay, we're going to take Irene, and we're going to move Irene up to October 29th. And you had probably had no evacuations.
Right.
Maybe a couple. Now we're going to take Sandy, which happened in October 29th, when everybody's home from the shore, and we're going to bring it in August or July, which may be a perpendicular strike during the peak of the season. If you didn't evacuate, you'd have thousands dead.
Right.
So each storm is different, and the reason that we ask people to evacuate is, let's take this bar so close to the coast. All right. If there's a storm coming and they tell you to evacuate, they're not telling you that. And say this is your home. They're not saying that this is going to be destroyed. But what's going to happen is this building is going to be shut off from the rest of the world because of 4-foot flooding. Now, no one's going to be able to go in there and get you. No one. And say you're visiting at the shore, you have 3 kids, your husband's still working back in Philly, and the kid starts choking. Your house is surrounded by floodwaters. Who's going to go in and get you? So the reason they ask you to evacuate is not that your house is going to be destroyed or you're going to die, but if something were to happen, you stayed against the wishes of the emergency management, no one can get you. And in the state of New Jersey, I think this still holds, Dan. If the winds get to 39 miles an hour sustained, not gusts, but sustained, emergency management cannot go out on the highway for safety of their own self.
So that's tropical storm force winds. Yeah, they cannot go out.
They cannot go out. But I don't know any emergency manager or first responder who would not go out in 70-mile-an-hour winds if they had to. So it's a tough
and that's the problem too, because you're putting emergency responders
at risk,
in harm's way,
right,
with your refusal to leave.
Right.
And like you said, houses today are built high up on pilings. They're strong. They'll probably survive some. Yeah. A lot of the older ones, of course, are very vulnerable. So, I mean, you may think, oh, my house is strong. It will probably withstand.
That's the only reason why.
Well, as you saw Mexico Beach, Florida, and the Panhandle, they got devastated. Little ways to the west there, the homes were fine because they were built to codes that were far different than these homes that were built years and years ago.
Right.
So that's another consideration. So in these scenarios with hurricanes like that, if you're asked to evacuate, it's only for your own safety. It's only for your own safety.
Now, is flooding and, of course, coastal flooding the most common type of weather in our area, or top 3?
As well, I'll tell you something. Time Magazine published an article a couple of years ago. Remember this, Dan? And they listed, we have 3,500 counties in this country, something like that. They published an article and they said that the #1 county at risk for natural hazards, Ocean County. New Jersey had 6 of the top 15. Atlantic County,
6
Cape
out
May
of
County.
15 in New Jersey.
And I always ask the people in Ocean County that I know very well, I said, why would you name a county Ocean to begin with? Why don't you name it Fair County or something? And then North Carolina, what do you think the name of their county is down there? Dare County.
Boy.
So
they're daring storms to come. Yeah, they do all the time. That was the Outer Banks.
So the idea, you know, what are we most at risk at? We can any month of the year have a storm equivalent in strength to wind and flooding to a Category 1 hurricane. So we in essence have a 12-month hurricane season, nor'easter season.
And it started off with a bang this October.
Yep.
We had a fairly strong, moderate to major, low-end major coastal flooding.
Yeah.
Is that a sign of things to come? Have you looked at, since you're retired now, you probably don't do any forecasting at all. I'm just kidding. But, I mean, have you looked at the winter forecast this year? I mean, is it going to be an active coastal storm season? You know, forget about rain versus snow or whatever. Is it going to be a quiet winter? Is it going to be a warm winter? Is it going to be a stormy winter? You know, is it going to be an active winter for tidal flooding?
Well, see, years ago, no one was making predictions based on things called El Nino or Atlantic Oscillation, North Atlantic this, South Atlantic this. But now with all the technology, we're seeing things more, and now we're trying to put, you had a piece here, you had a piece here, you had a piece here. Now what these scientists are doing, they're putting all these pieces together, and when they all fit a certain way, they say, my God, it's going to be a nasty winter because El Nino is going to come in, the ridge is going to go high, the trough is going to dig down the East Coast, we're going to have storm after storm after storm, like a conveyor belt. What I have seen over the last, say, 20 years, the ocean temperatures off in New Jersey, the last couple of years have been very warm. We've been in the 80s. That's a little unusual. We hit a record temperature this past year at the buoy of 84 degrees. I mean, that's tropical. So that in itself lends itself to storms developing as you get cold air coming in from the north. These storms that used to form off the Hatteras coast, where you have the Gulf Stream, very warm, and then the cold air would come down, you get this thermal boundary sitting there. That thermal boundary has been pushed north. And now these storms are exploding off the Jersey shore. Perfect one was January 2016. It exploded right off the Jersey shore, but it bang and went. It wasn't your typical 3 to 5 day event that we see. It just came in, the tide went up. This last tide event that we had, what happened was, several hours before the high tide, the winds in the upper atmosphere transferred down to the ground, and they were 70 miles an hour. So picture the ocean out there being pushed at 70 miles an hour for a distance of, say, 500 miles. And once you set the ocean in motion and the winds die down, the waves don't. They just keep coming. So 5 hours later, we had high tide, and that tide just rushed in like crazy. The heights were forecast pretty good, moderate. They were up 7.5.
Moderate. Some places did low-end major.
Low-end major,
right.
But it was the fact that it came in so fast. It came rushing in. Small-scale tsunami type. Tsunamis come in at what, 30 miles an hour?
Yeah.
This tide just came rolling in so fast, and even though the warnings were put up ahead of time, emergency management said, boy, that really caught us off guard. And I think it was the ferocity at which it came in, like January.
The Jonas storm,
Jonas,
right?
yeah.
Yes, and that was the same thing. We had 60, 70 mile an hour winds.
Yeah.
And it was one really bad high tide that Saturday morning. Yep.
Yeah. But you know, we used to run a string of high tides that were nasty. You had the high, and there's nothing worse than sitting out on your deck by the beach and watching the tide come in at low tide. That's frightening.
Yeah.
When it should be going the other way, it's coming in at low tide.
And those are our bad storms. The 62 storm. The one I remember most recently that mimicked that, it wasn't as bad, was I believe the Veterans Day storm in 2009. I want to say.
2009.
And that was 3 or 4 high tides.
Absolutely.
Right.
That was a powerful storm.
Yeah.
I mean, it hit with ferocity. But see, these storms are not forming farther south. They're forming a little farther north. And the reason you can see this is if you look at the hurricane tracks over the last 20 years, that conveyor belt or the intertropical convergence zone has shifted north. And eventually we'll go back. And then the waters are warmer north, so the storms are not diving down there. They're diving off our coast. And they're giving us less time than what you would usually get from, a Hatteras type storm.
Now you mentioned the first time you were on our show and this show that New Jersey has the year-round threat of flooding.
Right.
Now, most people that live here sort of know what to do, but what about visitors? Is there a way that we could put this information out there so they know which roads not to take or what to do in the event of a flooding?
Your organization does a lot in that respect, and so does different communities along the coast. They have it on their website. And again, you can never do enough. You can never do it. Now, for instance, we're sitting here tonight is Sunday. Monday night at this time, it's going to be windy. It's going to be raining. And the tides will behave, but the problem will be we're going to get a period of about 4 or 5 hours of heavy rain and gale force winds. And if the rain falls as the tide's coming in, it's going to flood, and the people think it's a tidal flood. And then we're going to exhale for 3 days, and then we're going to be back to a stronger storm perhaps on the 15th and 16th. So now I'm sitting here telling you that if I live by the shore and your place normally floods at a low event, you better be moving your car for Monday night, Tuesday, and also Thursday, Friday. But as Dan said early on, you're going to see cars going driving right through the floodwaters.
Which is really dangerous because
there.
I saw videos on Facebook of people driving through flooded streets, and the wake will cause properties to become damaged that wouldn't have been damaged if they didn't have that push of water.
Just think of your car when you get salt water in it, and then when you get you get a foot of water displaces 1,500 pounds.
Can lift the car,
lift the car
up. Yep.
And you get 2 feet of water like we did in that last event. Your car is gone. Your car is at the
Especially
mercy
if
of the
there's
tide.
a current, right?
Yeah, you're at the mercy of the tide. Yep. So. Now, we're forecasting this for the next 2 events that are coming along, but yet you're still going to see people trying to go around a barrier, trying to do this, and but one of the bright spots, and again, you look at Dan and the people who are on TV up in Philadelphia who actually concentrate on the shore when there's a storm, and at the Hurricane Center, the number one threat from a hurricane used to be storm surge. We've seen that kind of lower because they're trying to get to the people, the first line of defense, get them out of harm's way. Now we're seeing that the number one cause of death is freshwater flooding. People are, the rains are coming and people dying in the floods, and we've seen that in the last couple of storms. So in one respect, the warnings are getting a little bit better, a little bit more timely, and the people are listening. But emergency management, again, you're blessed in this part of New Jersey because you got some good people that stay on top of this stuff, several days ahead of time to get the word out. And just like you guys are doing. Perfect.
All right, some hellos, and thank you for being here, guys. Paula, Tracy Allen, Sue Kirk, nice to have you on. Ginny Van Doren, hi to you. Let's see, Kristen Kaiser, nice to have you back. Eddie Ed Mang, hi to you. Roger Cope, regular. Let's see, Michael Doughton, can I have a reminder of where we are? We are at the Irish Pub in Atlantic City on St. James Place. That's the $180 orange property on the Monopoly board.
Where else would we be?
Along with Tennessee Avenue and New York Avenue. Right next to free parking. And there is free parking here, too. So
I know the jail one. That's
they go to jail? Yeah.
They're also open 24/7, and I think they serve food, very
24/7, I believe,
I
think. So, we're here every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Next Sunday's your friend's birthday. I think you may like to come down. Of course, you guys are welcome to come down. Each and every Sunday, we are here. Art and Scott Shaw, nice to have you guys on. Steve Michaels wishing Happy Veterans Day to you all. And we said a blanket Happy Veterans Day at the beginning of the show, but a Happy Veterans Day to this veteran right here. I should have specifically
Perfect guest for tonight.
Absolutely. Appreciate all you guys being here. And again, all brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, which we are here ever since February. We began on Tuesdays. We're now on Sundays. Jim was our first guest, and Jim could very well be our every week guest.
Yes.
He has such, an interesting perspective and has so much personal experience. We're not going to have you every week, but we're definitely going to have you back.
Absolutely.
Because you're too busy in retirement to be here every week.
Yeah.
I'll bring a drone. I'll bring a drone in next time.
Okay.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, the New Jersey Coastal Coalition and the Irish Pub would like to thank you for joining us tonight with an Irish Pub t-shirt.
Well, he already got one, so he doesn't get another one, right? No, he didn't get one the first week. No, he didn't.
Well, you're allowed to have two.
He could have two.
Everyone should have two Irish
Where's
Pub
the Manhattan? So you promised me Manhattan.
That comes after. Let's see, Kristen, appreciate you don't miss a Sunday night. It's great you're here every week. Bill McCord from Summers Point OEM says, "Hey Jim, Summers Point, a storm-ready community, if I remember correctly." Roger Cope says, "Can we do a beer chug sometime?" Jim, I think, is doing one after the show.
After the show,
I think Palma is too. I got to drive, so I'm going to be out of that. But appreciate all you guys being here. Next Sunday, we'll be back, 7 p.m. You're more than welcome to join us live on Facebook or here at the pub.
Thank you.
Thank you.